Hello everybody, this is Scott. And I have a short little video that I wanted to present for you guys to go over a couple of important sort of basic things about finding source imagery for you to use as your raw material in Photoshop. Okay. Now, of course, to do anything in Photoshop, you have to start with having image files. And for the course of this class, there's a couple of different places that you can get your images from. Of course, if you feel comfortable with the operation of a camera and you want to actually shoot your own photographs, that's fantastic. If not, then there is a world, an entire universe of free image files that you could potentially use in your Photoshop's projects, but I want to be careful to steer you in the right direction so that you know what are the good images to use and what are not the good images to use. Now, I've got the Canvas homepage for our course is up here on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and click on modules. I've got one module in here. It's for basic info and class stuff. And I'm going to pull up this one page that I've got here of free digital image sources. Now, of course, there are bajillions of different places that you could get images off of the internet, but I do want to make sure that you are aware of, just make sure that you're getting the right images. Basically, the main concern is the image size, okay? There's lots and lots of different images that are on websites all over the place. But in order to actually use them in Photoshop, you need images that are of a certain pixel dimensions. Okay, if you get images that are just too small, then they're very, very limited of what you can actually do with them. If you have an image that's too big, you can always scale it down. You can always size it down, and it will work no problem. But if you start with an image that is too small, it can be very, very problematic to try to make it larger than it should be. So on the list that I put up here, there's a large list down here of different stock photo sources. I'm not intimately familiar with like all of these, but that's basically, you know, what they all are. They're all places that you can find stock photos. Unsplash is one that's very commonly used. They do have lots and lots of free images that you can use. You know, they've got a basic search on here. So let's just, I'm going to try to do, let's just say Apple. Okay. So if I do a search for Apple, then of course that pulls up all of the images that they have that are somehow tagged with the word Apple. Of course, that includes the company as well as the fruit. But, you know, there we go. Now, if I just sort of click on this one right here, I'm going to pull this one up. So that's a nice, beautiful picture of an apple. Now, all of the sources that I've got listed on here, before you go ahead and you download one of these images, first of all, I just want to say, I know a thing that a lot of people have a tendency to do is like they see an image like this and you're like, oh, you want to bring it into Photoshop, is yes, you can do a screenshot, okay? You could just basically take a shot of the screen and then pull that into Photoshop. But that oftentimes is just going to get you a pretty small version of that image. Once you screenshot something, you can pull it up into Photoshop, but then depending upon what you might want to do with that image, you may very, very quickly kind of push up against the resolution limitations of that image if you're just taking it as a screenshot. It's really a much better idea to try to get the largest possible version of an image before you pull it into Photoshop. So on Unsplash, they make it pretty easy. You just see this little drop-down menu right next to where it says download free, and what it does is it just pulls up a different list of all of the options that you have. Now in this case, it's got 4 different sizes The original one, this is actually a really nicely sized image. It's 8256 times 5504 pixels. That's a pretty good sized image. Now, depending on what you were going to do with this image, you might get away with using the large version 24 by 1600, or maybe even the medium 920 by 1280. But the point is, start big. Okay, start big. Get the big one. You can always scale it down later if you have to. The problem is that if you get a medium-sized image and then you start working with it, and then maybe after you're working with it for a half an hour is when you realize, this isn't a big enough image. You're probably better off just kind of getting the original one anyway. So on Unsplash, it's pretty simple. You just click on it, and then you can send a little thanks to the person that sent it, which I'm not gonna bother with that. Now on Unsplash, what Unsplash does is, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull up my desktop. So here we go, right there. So there is the image. It's on my desktop. If I double click on it, then that's going to open that image up in preview. Now, whenever you got an image up in preview, very easy thing to do. On a Mac, you push the Command I. I believe that would be Control I on a PC, but you just do the command and then the letter I, and what that pulls up is this little box right here. And as you can see right there, it says image size 8256 times 5504. And that's a very quick and easy way to look up the image dimensions on something that you have already downloaded. But before you open anything in Photoshop, I would really strongly suggest that the first thing that you do is you confirm its pixel image size before you actually start working in it. Okay, going back to my image things. Now that was Unsplash. All of these other companies, these are, again, also very similar free stock image agencies, but you can look through them and see what they have and see if they get any images that are of things that you might want to use. But again, you would probably always want to make sure that the first thing that you do is just be careful about the image size. So I'm not going to get too far into these. But all of these have some sort of version where you can check to see like what the image size actually is before you go ahead and download it. So it's like this one, say free download. So that's not terribly big. They're full, but it does have the full resolution download. Oop, okay. So, the free one, the full resolution download is a bigger size. So you might have to actually register in order to get the full resolution one. That is unfortunate, but that's the nature of a capitalist society. So, couple other ones just to look at real quick that I've got on the list of free digital image sources. The New York Public Library Digital Collections is an amazing archive of all kinds of digital images, historical, but you've also got photographs, but manuscripts, paintings, documents of all kinds. They've got scans of like entire books in here. This is one of my favorite things, like zoological illustrations. So you can pull this up, and again, it's show you download options, and it gives you the different sizes. That's actually not terribly large. So this is saying 760, which is not all that large actually. 760 pixels. So again, as you're doing your searches for imagery that you want to use, you absolutely really need to make sure that you're using imagery of the right size. Now, one that probably everybody is already a little bit familiar with is Google. Now, Google, of course, does have an amazing image search capacity. This is a link that I've got on here. That's the Google Advanced Image Advanced Search link that pulls you just straight into a Google Advanced Image Search. You can get to the same thing if you just go to the normal Google page, you go to Images, okay, and then go to Settings, and then Advanced Search, and that's the same way of getting the same thing. The Google Advanced Image Search actually gives you a number of parameters that you can define to determine what images that actually come up that actually will better suit your needs. So, for instance, if I just maybe I'm going to do something in it. Let's say alligator. I'm going to do a search for alligator. Okay. What the Google image search will do, it doesn't actually, strictly speaking, it's not like if you type in alligator, it doesn't look for images of an alligator. What Google image search does is it looks for images where the word alligator is somewhere nearby that image, okay? Or maybe where the title of the image, of the actual JPEG image, is alligator. But, you know, which is why sometimes in a Google image search you get things that don't really match what you searched for. It's because it just means it's an image that's somewhere near the word alligator or whatever it is that you searched for. The number one most useful thing on the Google Advanced Image Search is the image size. Okay. Now, again, going by the philosophy, bigger is better. Okay. I would say start off by looking for pretty big images, so 4 megapixel image. Okay, start off with a 4 megapixel image. You can do a lot with a 4 megapixel image in Photoshop. Even if you're just going to be selecting a small area out of an image, the bigger the original image is, the better off you're going to be. So look for big images. Now, the other options are not exactly as useful, or not really quite as exciting. Okay, tall, square, wide, or panoramic. You know, I don't really need to be concerned about that. Type of image is this really bizarre series of categories: face, photo, clip art, line drawing, or animated. You know, I'm going to do my own search and then decide if what comes up is useful for my purposes. Thank you very much. Of course, you can also search by region if, for whatever reason, if you want to look up Australian alligators, or Bahama alligators, or Brazilian alligators. You know, all right, if you want to make sure you're getting images from a particular location, and maybe there's a reason why you need to, that's how you could do that. Of course, safe search is what prevents you from pulling up porn. Then file format is probably the only other one that you really need to be concerned about. I would say just stick with JPEG, okay? The vast majority of images that are on the internet are JPEG files, so refining it to JPEG files is going to pull up plenty of anything that you're ever going to be looking for. Usage rights, I'm not really going to get into the particulars of this. I will just tell you that for the purposes of this class, any image that you take from anywhere, if it's something that you're pulling off of a website so that you can then do something with it and incorporate it into your artwork, that falls under the category of fair use. Okay, so don't worry about it. If you're doing client work, however, okay, if you're actually working for somebody and you're making something that they're then going to use in an advertisement or something, that's where you need to start getting super concerned about images like usage rights. And it is important that you do that if you are in that position. But for the purposes of this class, we don't really need to be concerned about it. So, going to go ahead and advanced search, and then we pull up our alligators. Okay. Now, so what Google Image has done is it's searched for images that have the word alligator near them. You've got the different search parameters up here: larger than 4 megapixels, and that are JPEG files. Okay. Now, of course, what we've pulled up here is not the actual images themselves. It's just a series of little thumbnails. Okay. You know, if you want to grab one of these, I know a lot of people do this when they try to grab an image, is you just sort of grab that and you can click and drag it over onto a desktop. If you do that with these thumbnails, then what you will be grabbing is the thumbnail, not the original image. You're just going to be grabbing the thumbnail. Doesn't do you any good to do that. So to get to the original image, okay, one quick and easy way to try to do this, if you just do a single click on that image, and then what Google Images does is it pulls up this sort of preview, which is kind of a beautiful little thing. If you just sort of mouse over the preview image, you'll notice that the pixel dimensions actually appear down on there. Okay. Now, I'm going to say that as a general guideline for if you're going to be doing stuff in Photoshop, it does depend a little bit on what you're doing with the image and what your final image size is going to be. But I would say the general guideline is you want something that's at least 2,000 pixels in any dimension. Okay, at least 2,000 pixels in any dimension. Ideally larger. This is 247 by 247. That's pretty good. Okay, so now I'm still not really looking at the full image though. It's just a larger thumbnail. Okay, to get the real image, what you do now I'm on a Mac, so I do Control click, and then that pulls up this dialog box. You could also do this if you are on a mouse. You can do a right click, and that pulls up the same dialog box, and then you click on View Image. Now, once you've done that, now you are actually looking at the real full-size JPEG image. Okay. Now let's say you like this one, you think it looks pretty good. All right, then there we go. Easy. What you do is another right click or control click on that image, and then you see this little option right here, Save Image As, and of course that will pull up your standard Save Image dialog box. Now you notice when it pulls it up, it will of course pull it up using the file name that it is on the website. You want to be careful about that because this one is called American Alligator Thumb, which is actually not a bad title. I'm going to say rather than thumb, I'm going to say that I should call this one Profile because it's sort of a profile of the alligator. Okay, and then of course what you're going to need to do is to define where you're going to download that image to. Now I already have a file that I've created ahead of time called Source Images, so I'm going to go ahead and navigate to that file folder, hit save, and then there we go. Okay, before I go too far though, I think it's always a really good idea before you go moving along too far. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to the folder where I was telling that to go, and I'm going to make sure it's actually there. And there it is. Okay, there is my image. All right. And there's my image file. So now I have pulled that up in preview. I'm going to do my little Command I again, and that pulls this up. And again, that tells me what I've got is a 2047 by 2047 image. So that is an image that is good enough size, and I would be easily able to pull that up into Photoshop and use it. Okay. All right. Well, hope this was useful for you. There will be many more videos to come throughout the course of the class. Good luck to you all. Bye.